Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
Taylor teases the life of a showgirl, and Howard Stern strikes back on his SiriusXM sunset.
The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Welcome to the program. We're getting towards episode 400 here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Welcome to the program. King of Podcasts here with you. Thank you for listening to the program, as you always do, through kingofpodcasts.com. So yeah, Taylor Swift announces on the New Heights podcast with her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, who's changed a lot in the time they've been together. She announces that she now has a brand new 12-song album coming out titled The Life of a Showgirl. And the track list right now for the album that comes out October 3rd includes tracks like The Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, Opalite, Father Figure, Eldest Daughter, Ruin the Friendship, Actually Romantic, Wish List with $signs, Would, Canceled, Honey, and she'll have a feature track with Sabrina Carpenter, who was the opening act on her Eras tour throughout, and of course she has made a name for herself on the title track, The Life of a Showgirl. So, through her social media accounts and appearing on Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce's New Heights podcast, she made the announcement the album's coming out. She worked with Max Martin and Shellback on the 12-track record, so the Swedish producers helped to produce the hits for Swift on her Reputation and 1989 records. So the podcast, she said, we never actually made an album before where it's just the three of us. No other collaborators, it's just the three of us making a focused album. It felt like catching lightning in a bottle. And this is a new album compared to the Taylor's versions where she got to go and re-record all her previous tracks from her past catalog that she got back in the whole case before, where she was able to go and re-record her music again. And for some cases, people really were happy about it. Well, the Torture Pose department did have new music, but that was also 31 tracks on this particular album. So she added on the podcast that there are no other songs coming. It's not like with Torture Pose department. I was like, here's a data dump of everything I thought, felt, or experienced in 2 or 3 years. Here's 31 songs. This is 12. There's not a 13th. There's not other ones coming. This is the record I've been wanting to make for a very long time, she says. And she also shared on the podcast that she's working on the album while her Eras tour traveled to Europe. Yeah, I've been hearing the whole story about how some of these artists, you don't have to be in a studio to go and record. They're just taking the recordings and recording in hotel rooms or wherever they are in between days or whatever. And then the tracks are being recorded and sent back to the studios to get produced. The Eras tour had 149 shows, 51 cities globally, was the highest grossing concert tour in history, the first in history to sell over $2 billion in tickets. And as we talked about, the master recordings of her first 6 studio albums from investment firm Shamrock Capital back on May 30th, she got them back, bought them back. And those are the master rights of her self-titled album, Fearless, Speak Now, Red, 1989, and Reputation. They were part of a 6-year battle over artist ownership rights. And originally it was Scooter Braun's Big Machine label group, which sold to Ithaca Holdings. And in 2019, Ithaca Holdings sold the master rights to Taylor's first 6 studio albums to Shamrock in 2020. So all that's been done, and she has successfully recorded 4 of the 6 disputed albums, Fearless, Red, Speak Now, and 1989. All she has left to record if she's going to do it is her Reputation and her self-titled debut album. And I'm going to make a prediction right now, because it always happens anyway. When Taylor Swift puts out an album, the song is going to go ahead and take over the chart. I think she took 9 of the top 10 spots when Torture Pose Department came out. And I'm going to guess she does the same. 8 or 9 of the top 10 songs will be hers. And maybe that will be enough to knock some of these older songs off the charts permanently. When it comes to Lose Control or Bar Song or Die With a Smile or Beautiful Things, maybe those songs will just finally go by the wayside because it will be wiped out by Taylor Swift. But she's not the only album coming up in September and October, because there are other albums also coming out. Apparently 4 major artists are coming out with albums. Why do they wait so long? Why did they not do it in the summer? That's what I want to understand. Well, we also know that Cardi B has a new album coming out. Am I the Drama? Comes out September 19th. Man's Best Friend, Sabrina Carpenter, is coming up in 2 weeks on August the 29th. VIE, and that's a new Doja Cat album on September the 26th. And then Taylor Swift's album, The Life of a Showgirl, on October 3rd. That was the plan altogether. So there have been a lot of stories that have been written right now about this. Obviously, it's a big deal because the music industry has been in a lull. The doldrums, they might call it. That would be what Guys at Polling would call that in his particular method of how music goes across. Remember, we talked about that a few weeks ago. And the touring, I guess, did give enough time to kind of let us see her just kind of separate a little bit from what she was doing. Now, I'm wondering if she's going to be seen at the Chiefs games again with Travis Kelce, to watch on the field, because it's been such a commonplace thing right now. And obviously Taylor Swift has brought a lot of fans into the NFL, a lot of her female fans for sure. So this is her 12th studio album. And there's a lot of things that are being talked about that the Swifties are all getting up and at about. Number one, the release date shows that being October 3rd, it ties to her personal numerology. It's the closest she can get to her lucky number 13. The fall release date is also returned to form because that's when she normally releases her records. And the exception is the spring 2024 release of the Torture Pose Department. I didn't necessarily get the whole deal with her wearing a Showgirl-inspired bodysuit made of diamonds, floating underwater in a bathtub. I saw a better picture, and that's the one I used in the graphics this week because it just looked better. It was a nicer looking picture. She just looked more attractive there. Looked more like a showgirl right there. And what's going to be amazing is how well this is going to be crafted because of the fact that she said that she will be playing shows, do 3 in a row, have 3 days off, and then those 3 days off, she'd fly to Sweden, go back to the tour, and the bulk of the album was apparently created during the summer 2024 while the musician was in Europe, going to studio and back. And so Max Martin, who's been so much work in terms of albums, and Shellback also to produce the album. She says, when I was on tour in Stockholm, Max Martin came to the show, was like talking to him. I was like, I just feel like we could just knock it out of the park. And we went back in. And some of the songs that Max Martin is responsible for that Taylor Swift made big hits off her album Red was the song 22 and Blank Space off of 1989. And the last time they worked together was on 2017's Reputation. 8 years. She says, we never actually made an album before where it's just the 3 of us. There's no other collaborators, just the 3 of us making a focused album. So no Jack Antonoff, no Aaron Dessner, not this time. What's going to be interesting too is that she will have been in a relationship the entire time. So the word is too is that the songs are going to be upbeat compared to the melancholy that she's put out in some of her albums as of late. Interesting. She says that right now, the album is about what is going on behind the scenes in my inner life during the tour. So exuberant and electric and vibrant. Just comes from the most infectiously joyful, wild, dramatic place I was in my life. And that the album melodies are so infectious, she says, that you're almost angry at it. So she says to Travis Kelce on the podcast that, quote, he says, I've been fortunate enough to hear every song on here, so I know they're all 12 bangers. It's a lot more upbeat, like fun pop excitement. It's a complete 180 for the songs on Tortured Poets, according to Travis Kelce. And Sabrina Carpenter, which I can imagine would be the song they'll probably release first sometime in September before the album comes out. The Life of a Showgirl will be the title track, and that is probably going to be one of the first songs we might hear. And Sabrina Carpenter is a featured artist on the song, and the only feature she has. But again, she hasn't done many, right? Ice Spice, maybe kind of a hit and a miss. Bon Iver, among other things. But of course, she's worked with other artists. But for her own albums, that's a rarity. But Sabrina Carpenter has gotten so much of a endorsement from Taylor Swift, and I could see those two complementing each other really well. But she also makes a point about making 12 songs here. The last time she did a shorter album was a 13-track version of Midnights, but that was a surprise album's worth of songs. She said you wanted one that was focused so much on quality and on the theme and everything fitting together like a perfect puzzle that these 12 songs, I feel like we achieved it. I'm really happy about that. Reputation was the last album where the musician didn't offer more songs that was on the original LP. So everything's being said right now, according to Rolling Stone, that this is going to be a big, glossy pop production. It doesn't mean Swift's signature songwriting isn't taking a back seat. Max Martin made the point that he did like the album Folklore. I thought she was really good on Folklore. And he loved the storytelling on it. And she says, I don't want to change that just because we're making these infectious anthems. I don't want you to leave that behind. But you know what? In her career, it is not a bad thing for her to go back to something upbeat. Because that was something that she was doing really well with in various albums before. Even I will say that. And my thing is, when I look at what she's done for herself and like the songs that I look at that she's made her career, I mean, I look back and I say to myself, okay, what songs do I go back to that I have in my playlist that, as a guy, what looks good, what looks interesting to me that I would go ahead and fall back into? That looks like it's pretty fun. And I look at that. And it's interesting to go ahead and look back and say, okay, what songs are there that stand out overall? Among the songs that I have in my list from her that I have held on to that I thought were good songs that I can go back and listen to over and over, these are the choices I would go with. So Bad Blood, I Don't Want to Live, it's always the hits, right? Don't Want to Live Forever, Endgame, Willow, Delicate, Cardigan, Blank Space, Antihero, Cruel Summer, Look What Would You Make Me Do. Those are the ones I always kind of fall back on. So if you want a guy's take on what I think about of her music, those are the songs that really do take from there. That's just my opinion anyway. But also very daring on the graphics here on what she decided to go ahead and get photographed to be looking like a showgirl in the first place. It was not something I was going to look at. I mean, she definitely has never been one to go ahead and bare her body that much, but there's something to be said about that too. And maybe people can also pay attention to that part as well. Who knows? Now, of course, what's going to be the big deal for her, which is with every Taylor Swift album, is that she sells vinyl and she sells physical copies very well. So what she's going to be doing right now is she'll have variants of the album, a Sweat and Vanilla Perfume in glitter orange vinyl, and there'll be a deluxe CD and cassette. And she'll have deluxe album covers also as well. You can also take a look at. Like, she's got it all set. She's good to go. And as for the podcast, the New Heights podcast episode with Taylor Swift has already gotten 13 million YouTube views in 24 hours as she gave the announcement. And she was, the idea that to announce the record, she did not go on a radio station. And she did not go to all these other big, outlets. She went on her boyfriend's podcast, which wasn't a big platform on Wondery. And, they definitely get an audience. So for that, it works out for him. She helps him out with a little bit of press. And while he's busy playing football this year in the NFL, I guess she's going to be promoting the album and whatever she's got to do with that. Now, when it was streaming live on YouTube, the stream did crash about an hour, 44 minutes into the episode on YouTube. But people were able to go and watch the episode on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Usery. So people were able to go and get to it and catch up with it. That did well for them anyway. But now, what does that mean also for the music industry itself? Because talk about like a stagnation in the music industry right now, and for having to wait for Taylor Swift to be the most important thing that comes out of an album that comes out this year, and to wait till October. So it's very clear that we're going to be hearing her songs up until Christmas, and then they will resurrect in January, February, March. We just know it. And it's pretty obvious that, when she's put out other albums, here's the other thing too. We know that there's always a constant push for listening to her music once she puts out a new album, but then the rest of her catalog starts getting a bump. So she's going to have a very good month in terms of streaming across the board because all her songs are going to get caught up. And the Swifties are going to be all into it because, they already went on tour. They went to the tour. They paid the money for that. Now they're going to pay for the album, support that. And, she's the one that pulls sales, streaming. And because it's Taylor Swift, of course, radio airplay will follow suit. It's just the way it's going to work out. Now, the other story I got to bring up that was also front and center this week on the program was the follow-up to the Howard Stern episode that I did last week and everything that came up out of that as well, because there is so much that was talked about it. Crazy. So there was one video that I put out, and for me to get TikTok to get me 14,000 views, that's pretty good. I must admit. SiriusXM will absolutely take his library. They want to keep, so let me give you what some comments were out there because a lot of people commented over the week about what happened. I want to go take some of those and bring them up to you right now. So here's what I have so far, just some of the ones that got in here. There were some supporters, but quite a few detractors. So one comment we got was, yeah, take it all and flush it down the toilet. Another one, retire, go away. Another one, I love everyone actually thinking he's retiring. This all stemmed from an article on Radar Online, fake news. Another person, Howard needs to retire. Come on, let's keep it real. His voice is fake. Those teeth are loose and wet and sound gross. And then another person, 109% speculation for people who have no actual information. I don't know if that was referring to me or the other commenters. Another, he needs to disappear. He's a has-been. He was funny. Now he just interviews the elitist Hollywood and kisses their ass. If he's not doing that, he's complaining and bitching and moaning. He's an angry-year-old man. Go play with your cat's guitar and paint. Another one, sell the library. Who cares? I know my granddaughters don't care about him. Nobody under 40 even knows who he is. Moving along, another person, he will do a weekly show with either Netflix or Apple, but he was amazing. Another person, the Sirius business model in 2025 is obsolete. Stephen Colbert got canceled not because of money, not Trump. Podcasts have more viewers and cost less. Stern is mellow compared to the old days. Another person, they don't produce his show. The $500 million every 5 years went to that. Telling him he has to do it for less and that he is 70s, that's why he'll walk away. Another person, whatever he does next, he will struggle to get ratings and struggle to make a deal. He's become unpopular and a format of his strengths will not translate the current media delivery. Another, he used to be a great interview. Hasn't been good in years. His time has passed. Sign off for good and leave gracefully. Another person, he will podcast. Another one, he has spent years bashing podcasts. Another, I think when he leaves Sirius, you're going to see a lot of people cancel their SiriusXM subscriptions. Another, if he doesn't come back, he will not sell his archives. He fought too hard and paid too much for that. He will take his work and start his own streaming service. He did, it's the access to the library. He didn't sell the library to them. Another, I remember when Benji wanted to do a podcast and Howard ripped them apart, said podcasts will never be a thing and never succeed. Another, I agree. I think he will keep his library and he will come and do 1 hour special interviews every so often, maybe a couple times a week, but no more show. But I don't think it will be on Sirius or any other radio platform. I think he will go on to a streaming service and still do it video. He'll still do television. I think he can do that. Another, we don't want to hear his video interviews any longer. It's always the same thing where he's trying to psychoanalyze the guests and always brings up parent trauma. Another person, he won't ever do a podcast. He hates them. If he can sit back and do nothing and get paid for his library, he will allow it. Another, this is all stemming from one tiny article. All this nonsense is speculation. And yes, Howard is the greatest celebrity interviewer that has ever walked this earth. If any of you ever saw the interview with Bruce Springsteen and his TV broadcast, that has become the template for his next endeavor. And yes, Sirius will pay a royalty fee for Howard's contract, but they won't own it. So that's the part that was said there. A lot of good comments I could say off of that, so I can appreciate all that. That was on my TikTok feed. And as for on YouTube, one person says, all true, but let's see them the last 40 years like him. Another person, time to retire. I would be surprised if they pay him too much for his content, more data by the day. Minadar 8908, hilarious how he hated podcasts and said he should be in a studio. Last 5 years couldn't drag him in the studio. He is a phony like the people he criticizes. Underwear. Sorry, that's a different story. Oh, that was another track I should tell you. So Michael Harrison did get some commentary from the interview I put out with him a couple weeks ago, making a point from Underwear, right? He says, I don't see public media as being particularly left. I do think going to a private model could be very good for liberal media because they'll have to get support from new places and won't have to be so careful in their reporting. We should get a clearer picture of the political divide / zeitgeist. So the story coming out from Howard is that the hot controversy doesn't go to waste. So from Inside Radio, they come in and say that SiriusXM aired a tongue-in-cheek promo on Wednesday, highlighting the speculation they could part ways with Stern. And Stern's deal is currently an estimated $100 million annually, is technically ripe to be renewed or extended. But sources say the U.S. Sun in the U.S. said the broadcaster is not expected to return when his current 5-year deal contract expires. Publicly said any comments about this so far. But the promo goes on to say that now we can reveal all the questions will be answered. All the truths will be told by one man truly on the inside. Howard Stern will speak Tuesday, September 2nd. So going on with what I was talking about, a source talking to the Sun that SiriusXM reportedly plans to make an offer, but the company has no real expectation he will accept. And they are trying to negotiate a deal to retain Stern's extensive audio library, but the Daily Show appears to be winding down. And SiriusXM executives publicly frequently are asked about Stern during media appearances, continue to highlight him as a one-of-a-kind talent, but at the same time, they're expanding their roster with Alex Cooper and Call Her Daddy, Stephen A. Smith, Trevor Noah, the Smartless team, and recent additions such as the Morbid True Crime podcast. SiriusXM has stars on multiple platforms. And at the same time, financially, they're tightening their belt due to reduced ad revenue because they're down 2% on a year-over-year basis and cutting their tech and product workforce by 10% to operate more nimbly. So they're not going to have the money. The money they already spent on the talent. There's no more money for Stern. And I believe there's not much more for him to go and do in this respect. So he will be out, and that's okay. Now, the one thing is that Stern is currently on a summer hiatus. He did make an unscheduled return to SiriusXM on August 6th, hosting a surprise broadcast with Metallica's Lars Ulrich to announce a new Maximum Metallica channel. And there was a promotional ad leading into cancellation rumors. We heard about that. SiriusXM has had Stern on the air since 2006. And his show, which once drew 20 million listeners in terrestrial syndication, as of 2020, the subscriber count had 2.7 million subscribers, and some claim numbers have dropped significantly. Speaking of podcasters, there's been talk about the 44 most powerful players in podcasting. We're going to go through this real quick, because it's very interesting about who they decided to go and put on this list. And of course, they're all major names. There are no grassroots on this program, on this list. Not at all. The Hollywood Reporter put this out, and number one on their list, it goes to Smartless, Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes. Currently on a $100 million deal with SiriusXM. They have done 300 plus episodes so far. Celebrities include Ariana Grande, Governor Tim Walz, the former vice presidential candidate, Bill Gates, and John Mayer. And also got Howard Stern to sit in for a special taping in the Hamptons. And because of their venture, they now have a mobile service, Smartless Mobile, to compete against Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. Next show is The Daily. That's from the New York Times at number 2. Then they also have Chuck Bryant and Josh Clark from the Stuff You Should Know podcast, which ended up getting bought by iHeartRadio, which is why they're over there. Joe Budden's podcast is in the list here in the top 5. Tucker Carlson, Alex Cooper, Ashley Flowers, the crime junkie, Kill Tony, and Tony Hinchcliffe. So some of these podcasts, when they put them up here, and they're just kind of, transferred over is some of the parts of it. The Huberman Lab, Andrew Huberman. New Heights is in the top 10. Of course, the bump of Taylor Swift's appearance will probably move them up a little bit higher. Megyn Kelly is in the top 15 here. Ezra Klein also up here. The Midas Touch. Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson and their podcast now. So like I said, they got a bunch of these people that are all, they're all notable talents, notable people doing their own podcasting. And to me, I don't think all these particular shows are really big on being popular because of who they are. I mean, all these people necessarily are not like incredible interviewers or really incredible on their own without a script or with somebody else helping and handling them. For the most part, all these names on this particular Power Players of Podcasting list, the thing is that they're all with a lot of people on board staffing and doing their shows. And if you listen to those shows, you listen to them for the people they have on. Like in all these podcasts, like Jay Shetty, once again, here's another one, On Purpose. He's a top 25 show. You look at the guests they've had on. He's had Khloe Kardashian, Bill Gates, Julia Fox, Nara Smith, Cynthia Erivo, and also Michelle Obama, that he gets headlines and everybody's talking about it. But that's the part of the thing people always talk about, is that how many of these people are really about the shows themselves and what they're doing? The Daily probably is one that gets a lot of people that go and come in, even though it's not guest intensive. The same thing with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway on Pivot On. That's more just the both of them working together and what they're doing. Theo Vaughn, this past weekend, he's in the top 30, and he's also done a lot where he gets certain people on his program, but he is a character and kind of holds his own. He doesn't do a bad job. He's kind of like where Joe Rogan kind of fits into the whole dynamic when you look at it. I can always keep looking at Pod Save America, and I look at the names Jon Favreau and John Lovett. I was like, what are we doing? I feel like I'm saying, okay, so is it the guy that directed some of the Marvel movies and also directed, Swingers? Is it that guy? No, it can't be him. And is it John Lovitz? No, not the SNL guy. Okay. It's just, I get confused, man. Names are a little bit too familiar. You have the executives, and they also have hosts that are on here. That's their whole setup. Now, what's also interesting, moving on into the world of music, since we talked about Taylor Swift and the fact that we have albums that will be coming out in September, October to finally kind of build some momentum, where some of the major stars are trying to go and get themselves out there and get noticed. Well, what new music is out there right now that's actually making a significant impact in the summer? K-pop Demon Hunters. And I meant they're going to talk about this before. The song Golden has now become the number one song in the country. And original animated hit by Netflix took advantage of the shareability of streaming to reach viral status. And this is from The Wrap. And now they're taking the movie, and Netflix, smart move by them at this part to even go and consider this, they're taking the movie to theaters to do sing-alongs. I mean, Netflix could have done this before, but you know what? This is the workaround reverse, because, I mean, there might be some people that might not have been familiar with K-pop Demon Hunters in the first place when they first came out. But, animes do pretty well in the theaters, I must say. I've watched a handful of them in the theaters, and, I'm surprised I haven't seen any others this year. What's really weird in the movie theaters, I have not seen any Bollywood movies or anime movies because they haven't been available, or they just haven't made it either put out the release, or my theater doesn't have them. I don't know. Some variation or the other, but I don't know what happened. But I've been looking for them. I have really tried. So now they're going to have sing-alongs. K-pop Demon Hunters. It was released on June 20th. This original English language film about Huntrix, a K-pop trio using the music and sharp blades to protect Korea from soul-devouring demons, has only snowballed in popularity, passing Carry On and the Oscar-nominated Don't Look Up this week to be the second most watched film in Netflix history. In 2 weeks, theaters will now partake in the cultural phenomenon with a sing-along version of the hit's big screen for a limited weekend engagement. If I can find it, I might go watch it. I don't know. I want to see what it's all about. Like, the songs are not that bad. I've seen them being charted, and I'm like, it's good. The Golden song is really good. I actually like that. I mean, I got it on my playlist. It's not that bad. I like it. So the rise of K-pop demon hunters comes along where Hollywood has an issue on how to get the public engaged with news stories and characters. But this should be a shot in the arm for movie theaters to be able to have this out there, and let's see how long it goes. It's the same thing that actually happened, what was it, last year, the year before with Eras Tour? Same thing with Taylor Swift. They put it out there as a theater showing, and everybody wanted to go see it, and it was amazing. The first 2 days of release, K-pop Demon Hunters got 9.3 million viewers. Pretty significant. So studio executives talked to the rap and they said that they get why Sony decided not to release Hunters in theaters because it would have been too hard to sell theatrically, especially with the marketing spend that would have needed to get it a chance. I don't think a low opening weekend could have been avoided, but then word of mouth gets saddled with the headlines that come from that. But they're on the right moment right now as the song Golden gets hot. The song right now is at number 1. And it rides up right now, the movie itself, up the all-time viewership charts for Netflix. This past week, K-pop Demon Hunters added 25.4 million views to its total to get it to 184.6 million views over 52 days. Carry On had the record at 172 million views in its first 90 days of streaming last year. Music's key factor to raising awareness and interest has drawn frequent comparisons to Disney's Frozen and its lead song Let It Go. The only other comparison we've had since the pandemic would be Disney's Encanto. And we don't talk about Bruno, which became a hit song of everything that was out there, which I think even got to number 1. That's crazy. And the songs that turbocharged the film's virality, several actual K-pop groups getting into it to go ahead and play along with it. And one thing that Netflix also did smart was they're allowing the public to share clips from the film. And so this out there and the songs and the whole buzz for people to go ahead and see it in the theaters in a sing-along mode sounds good. I also tried to do the same thing with Wicked last year, and looks like it probably did really well. But yeah, everything's all set with it. An anime musical, if you will. Kind of what the idea what they're doing with this here. K-pop Demon Hunters. But yes, number 1 song in the country, and I'm just glad it took Alex Warren off the top of the charts, which is a good thing. Several weeks ago, we talked about Paramount being bought by Skydance, Paramount CBS, all together, which is great. So there was a media gathering at the Paramount Pictures lot where the entire team got together to go and talk about the strategy for Paramount going forward for their film, TV, and streaming business. And the co-chair of Paramount Pictures, Josh Greenstein, that's the part I want to go and get to, that the studio plans to raise annual output. This year, they're going from 8 movies to 15 movies very quickly. And they're looking to start releasing 20 films a year. The coming slate of new installments of familiar franchises like Star Trek, Transformers, and also original movies like the newly acquired James Mangold film project High Side, starring Timothée Chalamet, will also be featured. And they're also looking to go ahead and seek out family fare in the vein of A Night at the Museum or The Goonies. And that the idea is to transform Paramount Pictures into a haven for the most talented filmmakers and seeing emerging technologies like AI, providing a tool to enhance storytelling. That's the plan on that. One last story to bring up here on the program, and that's a study from Odyssey, AUDACY, that company that still has a little bit of debt on their books and maybe not be able to go and get to their interest and pay it off anytime soon, but there was a released 2025 Vision Insights and Odyssey study about sports radio, or sports audio for that matter, sports talk radio, specifically live NFL play-by-play and sports podcasts. They engage the most passionate NFL fans, surpassing TV and social media, and over 80% of sports audio listeners identify as avid fans, deeply invested in games, stats, and team updates. I will say this, when it comes to me, play-by-play is very important because I don't necessarily have to go and watch the games live. Sometimes I'm going to be out working or doing something else, and I want to be able to still follow along and hear the radio call. And down here in South Florida where I'm at, you know, the college football landscape is filled to the brim with great play-by-play coverage of all the sports. With the fact that also we have a lot of stations that are also on FM. So ESPN radio, where I'm at, is available on FM. WQAM, which is the franchise or the flagship home now for the Dolphins, Panthers, Heat, and the Marlins, I believe. They actually have them all now, all in one place. WQAM just moved themselves to the FM dial after they had WXY on the FM dial for a number of years. But yeah, now the idea is that WQAM is now simulcast on FM. They're positioning it for FM, and they have themselves on a 100,000 watt signal. So to go and catch the games now on that station is a good thing, a good, powerful stick. So the NFL fan can position by platform and content. They show that avid NFL fans, 82% of them will say they're avid NFL fans, listen to sports podcasts or sports talk radio or sports radio play-by-play. And that those sports audio fans are high excitement, trust, and goodwill towards team sponsors. They also have 50% more likely to have household incomes exceeding $100,000 and wield strong influence over purchasing decisions. Finally, they say that sports audio taps into fans' passion, making your brand part of the game, not an interruption. There we go. So that's how the show ends out for tonight. And I'm glad, just in closing, to go and say that it's about time that the music industry realizes that stagnation. We should not be having to sit around all year for a Taylor Swift album or Doja Cat or Cardi B and all these others. I mean, streaming is giving us a chance to go and catch up on a lot of independent artists, but the labels they've been missing the boat. Pretty much like that. So come back next week for another Broadcasters Podcast. Remember, the content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.